Hello, it's Josh here from Racing to Profit. Hope you can hear me. This is going to be a review video of the couple of chases that I played in at the weekend. More to kind of, I suppose, well, try and touch on some things that may be interesting or useful for us all moving forwards. The odd notes and views on a few horses who may be worth keeping an eye on, it may not. Some general observations, and I'll try and talk over some of the replays, or a couple of the replays also. I fired 3 darts. We had a head second with Courtmaster. Beggar's Wishes lost a leg in the market and ran as such, and I'll mention him in a moment. And we had Brian Barana, who ran okay. I mean, he ran his race in the Durham National, and I fear that was probably as good as he was on the day. And if I ever back him again, please do shout at me politely in the comments. So, what can we take away from this race? Well, I mean, the first thing to say is just I might just watch it back actually, not kind of all the way through, but just to bring some things to life. One of the reasons for going with Courtmaster was the pace setup, the idea that he would most likely be in the right place, or in a place where any horse in any handicap chase, if they're kind of in form and can jump, and you think will stay, should give you a run for your money if they can kind of hold a prominent position. Red Risk, and when I play the replay, you'll see this kind of pace map from Gigi's come to life. Ravenhill Road kind of tracked the pace. Rosie has been up there before, so watching how he ran may be of more interest for the future. And then filing back, Fidux actually wasn't as far back as this on the pace map and kind of sat around here, and Beggar's Wish, as expected, I thought would kind of track the pace. Courtmaster was kind of in form, still unexposed, and looked likely to run a big race, and in my judgment 9 to 2 or so was still value to do so, especially given the pace setup. Beggar's Wishes kind of is very well handicapped on old form. It's just a question of whether they can get him back. If I just jump over to the replay, and we can kind of look at this and watch it as I talk over it, I suppose. Hopefully that's clear enough. If I full screen, is that still okay? Hopefully. You know, you can see the pace map. Red Wrist was going to be up there, and he was. You can see he's a bit keen, he's a bit fresh. Courtmaster was going to hold a prominent position and try to lead, and Brendan Powell's got him there. Beggar's Wishes sat there, as you can see. Fidux a bit more prominent and kind of easy, able to hold a position further forward than he has done at times at his races. Rosie Haas, who can race promptly, is kind of anchored out the back, as is Louis Vac Pouch, which wasn't a surprise. And you can see the kind of race they get into their positions, and not too much changes through this. Ravenhill Road was kind of travelling strongly, so if you're looking at things you can pick up when watching a replay and looking back, obviously pace positions are important. Red Risk was slow and sticky at a few of his jumps, not kind of overly bad, but more, he ran like a horse who's still inexperienced. This was on livelier ground and maybe is ideal, but then, you know, he mixed some very good jumps with the odd slow one, but nothing too dramatic. They've all kind of filed in and got the positions they want, I think. All jockeys kind of seem happy as they go through this race. And, you know, if I kind of skip a fair bit, I don't want to talk over kind of the whole race as they go, but yes, you can see they're kind of in the positions you would generally expect. You know, you've got a couple out the back that it could be argued were possibly there to, I don't know what's the best way to say it, build on their seasonal return, to have a good experience, and maybe with kind of races in the future in mind, given they were both making their first run back of the season. And as we skip through, let's kind of skip round. These shots on the side are always quite interesting. As you can see, the jumping again, you can see how strongly Ravenhill Road is travelling. He was still in it when coming down. I'm not sure if he was starting to tire. A lot of Sue Smith's especially chasers, are needing the run. Before this, in the last 2 years, she was kind of 1 from 44 with her handicap chasers kind of that had 60 days or more off the track. So in kind of the last couple of seasons, they have tended to badly need a run or two. You can see it starting to pick up here. I'm quite happy with Courtmaster's position. Brendan's just starting to kind of get after him. I'm confident he'll stay a bit further. This is actually kind of another furlong or so, 2 miles, 6.5 furlongs due to the rail movements. Louis Vacpouch is really under the pump here. A lot of Phil Kirby's, my sources tell me, trackside sources, are looking big and burly and are needing the run. He had a winner at Sedgefield on Sunday, so do keep an eye on those on their second and third starts. Back after a break. Apparently they're all generally looking pretty good in their skin, and he could have a burst in the kind of weeks ahead. He obviously has quite a lot of horses and a big string these days. What do we want to say here? Here I'm really happy. I'm thinking Red Risk might blow up. He might need the run. Ravenhill Road's coming there, and there's 2 Take a Crunching Fall. If I just put that back a little bit, you've got, I don't want to really pause that with horses on the floor. Thankfully, they both get up. Rosie Haas was just starting to close there in 4th. Now, he wasn't going to win, but he could have been running on into this spot here. His best form, his form last season was kind of over a bare 2 miles on softer, heavy ground. He's only 5, and his best 2 runs, when you look back at his profile, and by all means do go and do so, on the second start of his season return, so after his seasonal return on his second start back from a break, they've both been pretty good, including a win last time. That was quite a soft fall, so hopefully that doesn't affect him, the horse, mentally. He probably wants it a bit softer, but he was running on here as if this distance was fine. So I wonder if they'll try and find a northern handicap, maybe soft. Maybe they'll look to go back to Sedgefield over 2.5 miles. Ravenhill was travelling strongly. I'll assume he may have needed it. He has bled in the past. He is kind of 9 now, and I think it might be hard to place. I'll go through and touch on a few in a minute. Here I'm thinking, I'm not counting my money yet. That jump has cost Courtmaster, I think. You can just see how slow he is, and Fiddux has run his race, dropped a couple of pounds from his last 2 runs, which have made a difference come the end. Ping it, and he's just slowed and clambered, and the way he comes back doesn't suggest that was a tired jump, maybe inexperience or lack of concentration. I'm still thinking he might get back up here, but Fiddux, the little terrier, credit to him, sticks his head down, and ding dong, battle to the line. So that was, I suppose, from watching that race back, what we can kind of say is, Courtmaster's ran his race. Any chaser that's kind of going to race prominently, who's kind of fit in form, or you think the conditions are going to be fine, as we might touch on the Durham National, is going to kind of give you a good spin for your money. So as always, using whatever pace maps you do, that's a good way in, and always important context in a handicap chase. And I would never wade into a handicap chase without having some grasp of pace and race position and where you think horse is going to be. And a reminder for myself after Durham National, I suppose, is, can you make a case for horses you think are going to be up there? I'll touch on that in a minute. I'm not sure, looking at this race, what I want to take out from it. I like looking back at these races. Obviously, I'm personally going to focus on this jump season ahead. We've got Adam Norman coming on board to kind of provide some daily insight and tips and write-ups, and a couple of excellent weekly newsletter columns with his notes from the north, which will be kind of exclusive to our members. And I'm going to focus on the kind of Class 2 weekend, Grade 3 festivals, that kind of thing, with previews that try and help you solve the puzzle yourself, obviously, but to kind of test myself. They are the puzzles I like to dive into. And history suggests, since I started blogging on here, that's where my best chance of long-term profit are. With landing on the odd nice price winner, can be bumpy along the way, of course. But so looking at these races, I want to build up notes, and I do and have done on these horses, and to try and have a picture so I have their runs in my head for when they appear again. I don't think there's anything in here that's going to be, competing in some of the higher level races. If there is one, it may be Louis Vat Pouch, just because of this run at Cheltenham. Decent ground's okay. I think the trip's fine. They may get his mark. They may want to get his mark down. I'm sure he's got ability. He always needs a bit of luck. Maybe he does need a big field and a strong pace. Maybe he's an each-way horse. He might be tricky to place, but I'm sure there's something in him this season over fences. Red Risk, I think, is going to be hard to place. That win may have been not a good thing for him, just whacked up to 144. He might drop a few pounds. I'm not sure he looked on those replays if he's physically developed and filled out. It might just be a bit of a nothing season, I'm not sure. Or he's one for a kind of Ludlow, Taunton, soft ground. He needs softer ground. We shall see. The fact Nichols brought him back to kind of Market Rasen may suggest they don't think he's kind of chucked in over fences and has a kind of big pot in him. But we shall see. He's obviously only 5, and he is going to win more chases. When that is, I'm not quite sure. Philux is what he is. This race was run 20 seconds or so slower than the summer plate. So for us that have half a hoof in really super, that's, some kind of boost, I suppose, to her form in what was near identical conditions. Round movements, the same ground, pretty similar. But that's an aside. Mellow Ben is now down to his last winning handicap mark and may now drop below it. And I suppose 7-year-olds, any horse that's dropping below their last winning handicap mark over fences is going to be of some interest at some point. I think he's better left-handed. That's what his profile suggests. He does need decent ground, so he is going to be tricky to place, I think. That was only his 10th chase. He's not exactly overly raced, but you look at some of his form: Worcester, Fontwell, good ground, 20 to 22 furlongs, a win off 135 there, maybe a smaller field where he can press leaders, be a bit more prominent, left-handed. They're kind of his conditions. He's getting down to a mark where maybe they'll find a race for him. Beggar's Wishes, if they can get him back. Apparently he looked fit and well and good in his skin before this race, but it has, he's drifted. I've backed him at 10s. He's drifted to 25s with No Not Fate before the race was run, and he hasn't run that well, really badly. Maybe he did badly need it and it was just deceptive, or he's got problems because he clearly had an issue and an injury or something after this race. If they can get him back, to any of this form here, maybe he needs smaller fields. Who knows? He won off 142. That was conditions race, mind. But beat a high-rated horse there. Last handicap was off 132. So he's, if the Bowens, and they're pretty good with older horses, if they can get him back to anything, I would be shocked if they don't find some sort of race for him. Of course, as always, when you're talking about 9-year-old handicap chasers, they're always going to be attacked from something that's kind of more lightly raced and is working their way up. But of course, that's when the trainer comes into their own in terms of placement in races and everything else. Ravenhill Road was travelled strongly, was travelling with enthusiasm. I don't think he would have won. I think he would have been probably booked on for 3rd there. He was staying on well. He has been better in soft. I think 2 miles 6, 3 miles even in soft ground may not be a problem for him. But again, he's 9. He is lightly raced over fences, though. He has clearly had problems. He has been a bleeder in the past. This kind of level of form, again, it's not form you're going to shout about too much. It's not going to be good enough to mix it in really good handicap chasers. But his mark, it might stay the same, we'll see. But he could have something in him. This is a race that might throw up winners. It's just going to be hard to find, and we're going to have to judge maybe, obviously, which opposition may be coming the other way or is better handicapped. Rosie has only 5, fairly lightly raced over fences. This Sedgefield win was on his 2nd start of the season last year after an okay return. He was running well here. He would have looked like he was running on into 4th, and that this kind of distance would be fine. So maybe softer ground, 2 miles 4. In these... He's raced prominently when he's run well, so maybe he needs to kind of get back up there. He should be fit after this. Hopefully his confidence is okay, he hasn't hurt himself. That did look like a soft fall. I wonder if they'll try and find something at Sedgefield, whether or not, a similar race, 2 miles to 2.5 in softer ground. His mark may come down another pound again, and then, he's on his last winning mark. So yeah, these connections, new owners. Uh, you would think he might have something in him, but of course he's clearly no world beat. That looks like a kind of class three chaser, maybe. Luck of the draw is just tricky to place. You can see here that his record was always best fresh. Won after 150 days there, on his seasonal return there, pulled up Haydocks there, that wasn't a very good run, 199, and then he has won later on in the season back there, not in the last couple of years, so he does have a question. The handicap mark was fine, that was a bit of a naff run. If he is good fresh, you know, it's just worth keeping along, whether or not they're going to get another run into him, get his mark down again, put him away, bring him back fresh for something in the spring or summer maybe. Who knows? Pretty tricky. He's only 7. You'd think he's probably got another handicap chase in him maybe, but he does look like he's best fresh. Whether or not he proves me wrong through the rest of this season, we shall see. Ashoka's hard to place now, Ashoka, but again, below last winning handicap mark, and those types are always worth noting. Looks quite hard to place. Was running okay there. The market suggests he would come on for the run. He has been better at the kind of 16 furlongs, but he has then at the same time shaped as if 2.5 miles maybe within range. They can race him patiently. He's, again, one of those that's open to attack from younger legs, maybe more in hand. But like I said, handicap mark is looking fine. Court Master, going to be hard to place, arguably, and the market may not miss him next time. If he can get an easy lead and, maybe drop back into a class 3, easy lead, left or right-handed doesn't seem to matter. This seems to be his trip. A bit of cut in the ground and soft doesn't seem a problem either. I'd like to think, he did do an RPR of 133 here, so it was a decent effort. So, there should be more to come. It's just whether or not he's going to, he might be tricky to place, and whether the market probably gets hold of him. So, there's some thoughts there on those various different horses that maybe not maybe interesting or not. But yeah, there are a few thoughts there, and again, that pace and different things there. I'm 17 minutes. I don't really want to kind of spend too much time on the Durham National. There were quite a few older horses in this. It's not really one I want to go mad on. Brian Brana ran well. It was decent ground, 3 miles, 5 furlongs. The likes of Doing Fine, Petit Power just found it happening too quick. I'm not sure Be Bold stayed. And has a certain level. I'm not sure there's much I want to be rowing in here with. Dandy Dan's going to be hard to place, I think, this season. But again, another one who's kind of on and around the last winning mark, but 4 runner fields. Maybe he needs a small field, but then you're obviously probably never going to get a decent price necessarily. This run was okay here. He is what he is. He does look tricky to place now. It's not one I'm necessarily going to go mad on. He'll probably come on for the run a bit. I'm not 100% sure he saw this trip out fully. Certainly not as good as the winner, obviously. He walked through the last fence. He was carrying 11 stone 12, first run in 310 days. He is lightly raced over fences, and the Kim Bailey team are in form. Whether or not they're going to look to try and find something from it, Kelso. Maybe this race, that's 27th of October, it might probably be too soon, I suppose. But whether or not they can find something for him, given his profile, I suppose he's one of the few, one of 2 you might take from this moving forward, just because their profile over fences. Take in the sense he's probably got his age, he's lightly raced, he might have more runs from him from this mark if they can place him well. And then you've got this Sandy Thompson horse, who was trying to train a profiles qualifier, but with your subjective eyes, all of his form was in deep, heavy ground mud. This ground was a question. He has kind of run all right. I wonder if the ground was just the problem. He has stayed on after 3. You wouldn't say he didn't stay. It might just be it was happening a bit too quick for him. He lost his position, got back further back in the field a bit. If you watch it back, that would indicate he was struggling to kind of keep up with the pace. But a decent another regional national type race on soft, heavier ground. He may well come on for the run a bit. First, this was only his 3rd run over fences over here, wasn't it? So, and Sandy Thompson's very good with chasers. He's clearly got some ability, and he was probably always earmarked as a chaser. So he is one to take forward, and probably is the one to take forward from this. In much softer ground, could be interesting. It'll be interesting to see how they place, possibly when Ryan Manny is back on board. And the rest are what they are, really. Red Giant I should touch on, and I'm 20 minutes here. I'll keep this under 25. Again, well, maybe if I just kind of find the race quickly. I mean, the thing to take from this, as I just jump over to the replay again, is that importance, or how deadly kind of race position and pace can be. I probably should have predicted Red Giant may well have got an easy lead. Well, I did think about it. I'll touch on him in a moment. You can see where the Sandy Thompson horse has tried to hold a position there. I think that's very much a ground pace issue. He looks like he needs it much softer, but in that context, it was a decent run, decent effort, and he will be interesting on his next couple of starts, I think, granted softer ground. Red Giant is possibly an example of a horse who has clearly enjoyed being out in front, but just as, again, another reminder of the importance of rhythm, and how important and how that can increase your chance in a handicap race. He hasn't seen another rival. He's bounced back to his best. He probably was well, Brian Brana was chasing him in this a couple of years ago when he ran out. Or not ran out, the jockey mistook, thought he was meant to omit a fence but didn't. Or wasn't meant to admit offence but did, so he kind of had to pull him up, and he probably would have won that day. And yeah, so at his best, as I've noted in the write-up, given his handicap mark, he'd won off kind of a mark in the low 130s. He was off 118 here. The course and distance were fine. He was going to race prominently. The question was about his form in context of price. He was 16 to 1s in the morning. But again, just that importance. If we can identify those horses that kind of race prominently and going to have the form to stay there. Dandy Dan's in 30, finishes second. Brian Briner gets too far back. I was hoping Brian would have him a bit kind of where Petite Power is now, I suppose, but he was further back out the back, which always makes it tricky. Not that it made a difference and cost him. And here we've got a jockey who can just dictate, go his own pace, save up, fill up. His jumping keeps him a bit of ahead of the game, saves energy. Everything else has to chase. And then you kind of swing off down this hill, round this bend. If you're in this position, you're in a pretty good spot. And there's not much to take from that. Like I said, Sandy Thompson, who's back here, bit outpaced, not put under the pump too much, but does kind of plug on ground I suspect was lively enough. Inexperienced, and he's entitled to kind of come on for the experience of chasing again. Brian Brana is what he is. Maybe he'll pick up something. I don't think he won't be carrying my money again if he ever does. Dandy Dan's ran okay, but maybe a bit outpaced or has needed the run. 11 stone 12. I'm not quite sure if he's got home, but credit to Red Giant and connections there. Yeah, Brian Brana stayed on. The Sandy Thompson horse, you can see there, is kind of staying on hands and heels at the end. So that's that race. What can we say about that? Kind of 23 minutes here, looking back, learning points. I mean, along with Brian Bryan, who I was interested, he was kind of 13 pounds below his last winning mark when you had everything else was kind of above it and still had that to prove. It was one of those early season chasers. I suppose the other point is form, like that Market Rasen race, arguably to a point, always tricky or harder to kind of weigh up in terms of how it's going to work out, simply because a few may need the run, may come on for it. That was maybe more the case with the Market Rasen race. Red Giant, the question was, I should add, Jenny Candish, and this was a bit I didn't think about, had only had one winner since July. Now, you could kind of use that to go, was that a reason to be put off him because of the yard form? If you use the kind of Racing Post kind of running to form figure within the Racing Post cards, that's how they judge the horses running against the Racing Post ratings. She was on like 50%, so actually that can be a good guide, because it's not looking at winners and placed horses necessarily, but the horse running up to their rating, and that can include a kind of midfield finish being decent if it was in a higher class race, for example. So yeah, and hers was kind of the second best in the race for trainers, actually. But that, and I think the jockey gave that as a reason after that, a lot of Jenny's just weren't going very well. you mix that with the fact that Red Giant is a bit of a character, you know, cheek pieces, visor, cheek pieces, visor. They keep chopping the headgear around. He clearly had the handicap mark and the form, and he's running this 2 years ago to compete it. I knew that, so I'm happy with that element. I couldn't see why he was going to leave behind what were quite awful runs, and from very early on in the races. Not like he was going really well deep into the contest and then fell in a hole. He was getting behind kind of midway through, if not before, over course and distances that he had won at. Actually, we backed him when he won his last win before this, actually. I wasn't close to him, to be honest, at 16s here. So that always leaves you with some thinking. And I know some other people in my various circles were. So well done to them. So yeah, the yard form, them being quiet, and the idea that maybe if he could get out in front, get an easy lead, he might enjoy himself, get into a rhythm, and he might just be one of those horses and he's hard to catch. Right, I'll finish by saying the pace was predictable to a point. Chance at another 5 was up there, just not good enough to hold. Derek Fox did jump Duke de Grisey off, but couldn't hold a position. Dandy Man, I thought over this trip for the first time would be prominent, but they wouldn't be ultra aggressive. Gangster, bit of a boat, maybe wasn't good enough. And there is Red Giant. So, you know, you could look at these again, try and desperately make a case for these 5. Dandy Dan's come second. The winner, Red Giant, there. It wasn't hard to predict because he had gone on before that he would be further up here, especially over a trip further than 3 miles where you can go a slower pace. And that was a good ride from Quinlan Candish, and he has kind of made all there. So a good run. The final thing I suppose we can just touch on, that this was before this run, I think. Trainer jockey, 4 from 14, 5 places at Sedgefield in the last 5 years or so, or 2 years maybe. They don't come here too often. You know, when they do team up at this track, that may be worth noting. So that's something to note moving forwards. I don't think there's much else, and I should really be quiet and finish up there, shouldn't I? Because that's 27 minutes, about 6-7 minutes longer than I planned. But with any luck, as always, I've said something which you may have noted down, which may be of interest, which may make you think about something, and that may help you land on a winner or two moving forwards. So with that said, thanks for watching. As always, any comments, likes on the YouTube video, I'm not sure if they're useful or not. But yeah, if you do like the video or got any questions, post the video, tick like if you watch it on YouTube. There's always links below the video on YouTube to the blog or whatever else. And yes, with that said, enjoy the rest of your day. Thanks for watching. Until the next time, this is Josh saying bye for now.